Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're opening a file that sits right in the terrified center of a Venn diagram between true crime, medical anomaly, and, I guess, gothic tragedy.
That's a good way to put it.
We are looking at a story that tests the absolute limits of human connection. And I want to start by asking you a question, a really, really difficult question.
Yeah.
Can you love someone so much that they actually steal your soul?
Wow. That is a heavy way to start. But, I mean, given the case file we have in front of us today, it's really the only question that matters.
Right.
Usually we look at relationships as being additive, you know,
Yeah.
two people coming together to make something bigger, something more. But in this case, the relationship was subtractive. It was a kind of soul-eating arithmetic.
Right. And let's take it a step further. Can you be so connected to another person, biologically, psychologically, emotionally, that for one of you to truly live, the other one has to die?
It sounds like the plot of a horror novel.
Yeah.
It really does. But we are talking about a very real, very documented case. Today we are analyzing the lives of June and Jennifer Gibbons. And the world knows them as the Silent Twins.
And if you've heard that name, you might think you know the story. You probably think, oh yeah, the twins who didn't talk to anyone.
That's the surface level take for sure.
But as we went through these sources, the medical journals, the diary entries, the investigative reports, it just became so clear that silence was just the surface.
A symptom.
Yes, exactly. Underneath that silence was a pact, a deadly agreement.
Precisely. This isn't just a story about selective mutism or, social anxiety. This is a story about a micro-society of two.
A micro-society, I like that.
A world so insular and so intense that it developed its own laws, its own language, and ultimately its own death sentence.
So our mission today is to unpack this. We're going to look at the psychology behind their silence, the absolute horror of the reality they shared, which, spoiler alert, was not a happy twin bond.
No, not at all.
And the baffling mystery of their final separation.
And we have some fascinating sources to guide us. We have medical literature on shared psychotic disorders to give us the clinical framework, but we also have the raw, unpolished diaries of the girls themselves.
And those diaries.
They offer a window into their minds that is, frankly, is terrifying.
It really is. Okay, let's dive into the beginning. Or I guess let's dive into the condition itself, because the Silent Twins is a catchy nickname, but medically, something very specific was happening here.
Right. To understand June and Jennifer, you have to understand the concept of folie à deux.
Which translates to madness for two.
Exactly. It's a French term, first coined back in the 19th century by Lessig and Fellret. But looking at our source from StatPearls, which is a pretty standard medical database, it's formally known as shared psychotic disorder.
Okay, so break that down for us. What does that actually mean in the clinical sense? I mean, folie à deux sounds almost poetic, but I'm guessing the reality is much, much messier.
It is. It's a rare disorder where a delusion, a specific, fixed false belief, is shared by two or more people who are in a close relationship.
Okay.
Usually you have what the literature calls an inducer, or the primary case, who has a genuine psychotic disorder.
Yeah.
This person then influences another individual, the induced or secondary, to adopt those same delusional beliefs.
So one person is driving the car and the other person is kind of just along for the ride. Is that a fair way to put it?
That is the classic model, yes.
Yeah.
It's often called folie imposée or imposed psychosis. The dominant partner imposes their reality on the more submissive partner.
Right.
But, and this is where the Gibbons twins get so interesting, there's another subtype. It's called folie simultanée.
Simultaneous psychosis.
Yeah.
Which I assume means they both go mad at the same time.
Essentially. The source describes it as a situation where both partners share the psychosis simultaneously.
Yeah.
And it's usually because they share a lot of risk factors and have had these long, incredibly isolated social interactions. There's even mention of genetic risk factors playing a role, especially among siblings. So it's not just one person pushing the other, it's more like a feedback loop.
Where they just reinforce each other's deviation from reality.
Exactly. They build a world together and they seal the doors.
And when we look at the Gibbons twins, I mean, they check every single one of those boxes for risk factors. It's almost a textbook case.
They certainly do. The StatPearl source lists social isolation as a critical factor. It says, and I'm quoting here, most reported cases indicate poor interaction with society.
Which creates an echo chamber.
The ultimate echo chamber.
Yeah.
It creates this environment where a confused individual has no one to compare reality with except the other person in the dyad.
And June and Jennifer were inseparable from birth. Literally.
Born in 1963 in Yemen, actually. Their father was in the RAF, so they moved around. But the real story begins when the family moves to Wales.
And this brings us to what you called the micro-society they built. We have to look at the context here. They were born in Yemen, their parents are from Barbados, and then suddenly they land in Wales in the 1960s and 70s.
And according to the biographical sources we have, they were the only black children in their elementary school.
And that's a recipe for isolation right there. We can't gloss over that. Being othered at such a young age in such a visible, unavoidable way, it just fundamentally changes how you interact with the world around you.
And it was severe. The sources detail relentless bullying. They were targeted because of their race, because they were different, because they were twins, they were quiet.
All of it.
And the natural human reaction to that kind of trauma, especially for children, is to retreat, to go somewhere safe. For June and Jennifer, safety was each other.
It's absolutely heartbreaking when you think about it. The world rejected them, so they rejected the world right back.
But they took it to a level that most of us can't even comprehend. It wasn't just that they stopped talking to other kids on the playground.
Yeah.
They stopped talking to everyone.
Even their parents.
Even their parents. Their father, Aubrey, he recalled that at home they would make sounds, they'd chatter away in their bedroom, but they wouldn't talk readily like normal children. If an adult spoke to them directly, it was just silence.
They just slowly, methodically cut the lines of communication with everyone outside the dyad, outside the pair.
And they replaced English with something else, this so-called secret language.
This is one of the most fascinating parts of the story.
It really is. People thought they were speaking gibberish. Teachers, neighbors, nobody could understand them. It was described as sounding like birds chirping or like high-speed static.
But it wasn't a made-up language, was it?
Not at all. Later analysis showed it wasn't some fantasy language they invented. It was a speed-spoken version of Bajan Creole.
Bajan Creole being the language from Barbados, where their parents were from, so they would have heard it at home.
Right. But they sped it up so much and synced their speech so perfectly that it became completely unintelligible to the outside ear. It was a weaponized language.
It functioned as a wall.
A fortress wall. If you can't understand us, you can't enter our world. And if we don't speak your language, we don't have to participate in your reality.
It's like encryption. They encrypted their communication so only the other twin had the decryption key. It creates a complete barrier to entry for anyone trying to help or even just understand them.
That's a great analogy. And this encryption, this wall, it extended beyond language. It went into their physical movements too.
Oh, right.
We have reports from a medic, Dr. John Rees, who saw them at school for vaccinations back in 1974. He described their behavior as doll-like.
That just gives me chills. Doll-like.
Yeah.
It implies a lack of humanity, or at least a total lack of autonomy.
He noted they were non-reactive. They wouldn't flinch at the needle. But more than that, other observers noted this phenomenon of mirroring. They moved in perfect, uncanny unison.
I read that one wouldn't drink her tea unless the other one lifted her cup at the exact same moment.
Yes. And just think about the level of focus that requires. It's a total loss of individual identity. It means you are constantly watching the other person, tuned in to their every micro movement, their every intention.
It's not your own will driving you anymore.
Not at all. And June later reflected on this. She said, one day she'd wake up and be me, and one day I would wake up and be her.
And she had that one quote, "Give me back myself."
Exactly. That's the quote. We used to say, "Give me back myself."
Wow.
Imagine the psychological horror of that. Looking at another person and feeling like they have stolen your actual identity. Like you are just an empty vessel, and your personality is poured into the person standing right next to you.
It's like they weren't two people anymore. They were one organism, one consciousness that was just spread across two bodies. And that leads us directly into the psychological horror aspect of this. Because from the outside, people just saw two quiet, weird girls. But on the inside, it was a war zone.
It really was. And the adults in their lives, they tried to intervene. They saw this intense dependency and thought logically, okay, we need to break this bond.
This was when they were teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Around 14. The experts decided to separate them.
Yeah. Send them to different boarding schools. The logic being, if they're apart, they'll be forced to develop their own identities. They'll be forced to function as individuals.
It's a standard approach for dependency issues. Makes sense on paper.
It does.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was absolutely catastrophic. The source describes the result as catatonia.
Catatonia, so not just, sad or withdrawn, literally shutting down.
Completely. Stiff and heavy as a corpse.
Yeah.
That is how June was described. It took two people to physically lift her out of bed. She would just be propped against a wall, unmoving.
Oh, God.
And it proved that the physical separation couldn't break the psychological bind. If anything, it showed that without the other, neither of them actually existed. The self had been so distributed between the two of them that when you took one away, the remaining half just couldn't function.
So the doctors panic, they reunite them, and they retreat even further into their bedroom. And this is where we get access to the diaries.
The diaries are the most critical piece of evidence we have. Without them, this is just a sad story about mutism. With them, it becomes a horror story.
They shift the narrative from a clinical observation of selective mutism to a first-person account of psychological terror.
Absolutely.
I want to read an entry from Jennifer. This was written during their teenage years when they were locked away in their room, refusing to speak to their parents. Just listen to the language here.
Okay.
She writes, "We have become fatal enemies in each other's eyes. I feel the irritating, deadly rays come out of our bodies, stinging each other's skin."
Deadly rays. I mean, that is so visceral. It's not just an idea. It suggests a physical pain caused by the other's presence.
Right.
It moves beyond just psychology into a somatic experience. They physically hurt each other just by existing in the same room.
And she goes on, "I say to myself, can I get rid of my own shadow? Impossible or not possible? Without my shadow would I die? Without my shadow would I gain life?"
And this is the crux of it. This is the entire folie à deux dynamic right there on the page. She identifies June not as a sister, not as a friend, but as her shadow.
Her shadow.
And the existential dilemma is explicitly stated, without my shadow would I die, or would I gain life? She knows even then as a teenager that one of those two outcomes is inevitable. It is a zero-sum game, one life or one death.
And she describes June as, and this is a direct quote, "a face of misery, deception, murder."
A murder.
Murder. These are teenage girls living in their bedroom playing with dolls and writing stories, and she's writing about murder and deception in her private diary, about her own twin.
It's such a paradox, isn't it? They loved each other with an intensity that the rest of us probably can't even fathom, but they also felt completely possessed by each other. It's the ultimate love-hate relationship, dialed up to a psychotic, terrifying degree.
And June felt it too, right? It wasn't just Jennifer feeling this way.
No, not at all.
Oh.
June's diary entry says, "Jay is the one who influences me, possessed by her twin."
That word again, possessed.
The concept of possession is really important here. I mean, in a typical relationship, you have boundaries. You end here, I begin there. In their case, those boundaries had completely dissolved.
There were no boundaries.
None. They were fighting for occupancy of the same soul or the same psychic space. It creates this terrifying claustrophobia. You can never be alone because the other person is literally inside your head.
It's interesting because when you look at that Stat Pearl's definition of shared psychosis, it talks about an inducer and an induced, a dominant and a submissive. And Marjorie Wallace, the journalist who got close to them later, she definitely noticed a dynamic like that, didn't she?
She did. And Marjorie Wallace is a really key figure here because she was the only outsider they ever willingly invited into their world.
Through their writing.
Through their writing, yeah. And she observed that Jennifer seemed to be the dominant force. Jennifer was the one who signaled to June when she was allowed to speak, or more often, when she had to stay silent.
So Jennifer holds the keys to the kingdom, so to speak.
It definitely seemed that way on the surface. Marjorie noted that June often looked like she wanted to participate in the conversation, but a quick glance from Jennifer would just shut her down completely.
Oh.
But the diaries showed that despite this apparent dominance, both felt equally trapped. It wasn't a happy dictatorship. It was a mutual prison.
And what do you do when you're in prison? You try to escape. Or you try to create a new world inside the prison. And they did that through writing.
Their creative output was prolific. I mean, astonishingly so. They took a mail-order writing course. They wrote novels, plays, poems, and the themes. Well, they weren't writing about ponies and high school dances.
No. They were writing these lurid tales set in Malibu, California, a place they'd never been, that they only knew from TV.
And the stories were all about crime, young lovers on the run, violence. They even self-published a book. It was called The Pepsi Cola Addict.
Which is an incredible title, by the way.
Isn't it? But the content was dark.
Yeah.
Really dark. It was about a teenager who gets seduced by a teacher, deals with addiction. It shows that despite their physical isolation, their minds were traveling to very dark, adult places.
It's proof that their silence wasn't due to a lack of intelligence or imagination. Their inner world was vibrant, it was just incredibly twisted.
But eventually writing wasn't enough. The ink ran dry, or maybe the vicarious thrill just wore off.
And this is where the story takes a sharp, sharp turn from a psychological drama into a true crime story.
Boredom. It's a powerful motivator. They wanted to experience the world they were writing about. They wanted to live it. So here in their late teens, around 18, he started acting out.
It started with petty crime, right? Shoplifting and things like that.
Yeah, but then it escalated. It escalated to arson.
And arson is a very aggressive form of acting out. It's not passive.
No, it's about power. It's a cry for help, for sure, but it's also a way to assert power over the physical world. If you feel completely powerless in your own life, watching something burn to the ground because you lit the match, that's a heady rush of control.
And that, of course, brings the full weight of the law down on them. In 1981, they're arrested. And because they are... Well, because they're the silent twins, because they refuse to speak, because they move in this creepy unison, the court doesn't know what to do with them.
They're a complete anomaly to the system.
So they aren't sent to a regular prison. They are sent to Broadmoor. Now, for our listeners who might not be familiar with the UK system, can you just explain what Broadmoor is? This isn't just a hospital.
No. Broadmoor is a high-security psychiatric hospital. It houses some of the most dangerous and violent offenders in Britain. We're talking serial killers, rapists. The Yorkshire Ripper was housed there for a time. It is not a place for teenage girls who set some fires and won't talk.
That's terrifying. They went from the prison of their bedroom to a facility for the criminally insane.
And the sources really emphasize the shock of this. June later called it 12 years of hell.
12 years. That is their entire young adulthood, from age 19 to 31. They completely lost their 20s to this place.
And the treatment there was, well, it was heavy-handed. High doses of antipsychotic medication. The goal was to chemically suppress the psychosis, to break the silence by force.
But it just caused physical suffering.
Yeah. Jennifer suffered from tardive dyskinesia, which gave her blurred vision. They both gained a lot of weight. They were lethargic. They lost their creative spark. They stopped writing during this time because the drugs just dulled their minds so much.
June wrote letters to the Queen, didn't she? Begging for a pardon.
She did. She wrote, "We were trapped." The desperation comes off the page.
And yet, through all of that, the silence held. Even in Broadmoor, surrounded by doctors and psychiatrists and some of the most dangerous men in the country, they maintained the pact.
It shows the sheer strength of their bond, or their psychosis. Even Broadmoor couldn't break it.
But, nothing lasts forever. And as they approached their 30s, the system finally decided it was time to move them.
And this brings us to the final section of our discussion. The ending. Or, as I think we should probably call it, the sacrifice.
It's March 1993. After 12 years, they are finally being transferred. They're going to a lower security clinic, the Caswell Clinic in Wales.
This is supposed to be the first step toward freedom. They're going closer to home.
Yeah.
They might actually get released eventually. It should have been a moment of hope.
It should have been a celebratory moment. But shortly before the transfer, Jennifer has a conversation with Marjorie Wallace. And this conversation, it just changes the entire context of what happens next.
It reframes everything.
I have the quote here. Marjorie is visiting, they're having tea, and suddenly, out of nowhere, Jennifer says, Marjorie, I'm gonna have to die.
And Marjorie kind of laughs it off.
Yeah.
She says something like, "Don't be silly, you're not ill, you're getting out of Broadmoor."
And Jennifer just looks at her completely serious and replies, "Because we've decided."
Because we've decided. That is the single most chilling sentence in this entire case.
It is.
It implies agency. It implies a plan, a consensus. It wasn't, "I feel sick" or "I think I'm dying." It was, "We have made a decision."
And the sources say the sisters had come to believe that they could not both live in the free world. The pact had reached its terminal phase. One had to leave for the other to survive.
It goes right back to that diary entry she wrote as a teenager. "Without my shadow, would I gain life?" They seem to have finally definitively concluded that the answer was yes.
But only if the shadow was gone for good.
They had crunched the numbers of their own existence and realized the equation only worked if one variable was removed. Permanently.
So let's walk through the day of the transfer. It's the day they've been waiting for 12 years. They get on the bus, they were leaving Broadmoor, the gates are closing behind them.
Jennifer is sitting next to June. And according to the reports, she rests her head on June's shoulder. He says, "At long last, we're out."
A moment of peace, almost.
You think so?
No.
And then she slips into a coma. Just like that.
On the bus.
On the bus. Mid-journey. By the time they arrive at the clinic in Wales, she's completely unresponsive.
So they rush her to a hospital.
They do. And she's pronounced dead at 6:45 p.m. that evening. She was 29 years old.
Okay, stop, because this is where my brain just breaks a little bit. She was 29. She was physically healthy for the most part, aside from the side effects of the meds. What killed her?
The autopsy revealed she died of acute myocarditis.
Which is an inflammation of the heart.
Exactly. A sudden, severe inflammation of the heart muscle.
Okay, but what caused it? That doesn't just happen for no reason.
And that is the million-dollar question. That is the central mystery. The pathology report found no drugs in her system, no poison. There was no obvious medical reason for her heart to suddenly and catastrophically fail.
Wait, so she didn't take a pill? She didn't overdose on something she'd managed to smuggle out of Broadmoor?
No. The toxicology report was completely clean.
So her heart just stopped.
Doctors at the Caswell Clinic, they speculated that maybe the heavy antipsychotic medications from Broadmoor had weakened her immune system or damaged her heart over the long term.
Okay, that sounds plausible.
It does, but, and this is a huge but, June had been taking the exact same medications in the exact same doses for the exact same amount of time, and June was physically fine.
She was perfectly healthy.
Yep.
So this is where we have to ask the question that science hates. Can you will yourself to die?
I mean, medically, science would say no. You cannot simply stop your heart by thinking about it. But the timing, the prophecy to Marjorie Wallace, the fact that they had decided, it forces you to look at this through a psychological lens, not just a biological one.
It's like the ultimate terrifying manifestation of the mind-body connection. If they believed, truly fundamentally believed, that one of them had to die for the separation to be successful, did Jennifer's body just comply with that belief?
You could call it a psychological sacrifice. In their strange, closed-off micro-society, death was the only viable exit strategy. It's almost as if Jennifer, being the historically dominant twin, took control one last time.
She took control of her own death.
To liberate her sister.
And the proof of this pact, the proof that this was a deliberate act, it seems to be in what happened next. How did June react?
Well, you'd expect her to be devastated, utterly destroyed. You'd expect her to go catatonic again, just like she did when they were separated at 14.
That's what everyone was afraid of.
That is exactly what the doctors feared. They thought June would completely collapse, but the opposite happened.
The opposite.
June wrote in her diary, this is just days after her twin, her shadow, her entire world died. She wrote, I am free at last, liberated, and at last Jennifer has given up her life for me.
Given up her life for me. Not lost her life, given it up.
Exactly. She viewed it as a gift. A transaction had been completed.
And her behavior changed instantly.
Immediately, on the spot, she began speaking to everyone, to the nurses, the doctors, her family, clearly, normally, as if she'd been doing it her whole life.
Wow.
The speech impediment, the silence, the withdrawal, it all evaporated the moment Jennifer's heart stopped beating.
That is profound. It's like a spell was broken.
It strongly suggests that the silence was never a disability. It was a choice. It was a rule of their society. And with the enforcer of the rule gone, the rule no longer applied.
So June is eventually released. She rejoins society.
She lives a quiet life now. From what we can gather, she lives in the UK, near her family. She's independent. She's, for all intents and purposes, normal.
A silent twin is gone, and June Gibbons is just June Gibbons.
That's right.
It's a happy ending in a very strange, tragic way. June got a life. But the cost, my God, the cost was Jennifer.
It brings us right back to that fundamental question of identity. We like to think of ourselves as something solid, something that belongs to us alone. But this case shows that identity can be fluid, it can be shared, and it can be stolen.
It's the ultimate tragedy of their bond. They were too close to exist as two separate people. The universe, or maybe just their own minds, didn't have enough room for both of them.
It's a haunting thought. We all strive for connection, for closeness, but perhaps there is such a thing as too much connection, a point where you lose yourself entirely.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought, a bit of a provocation to just sort of noodle on.
Go for it.
So we know June started living her own life after Jennifer died. She became June. But considering their belief that they were one soul in two bodies, considering that June mirrored Jennifer and Jennifer mirrored June their whole lives.
I think I see where you're going with this.
Is it really June living her life today? Or, in keeping with their pact, the final act of their shared psychosis? Is it Jennifer living through June? Did the dominant twin, in the end, simply take over the surviving body?
That is a question that will absolutely keep me up tonight.
Us too. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the silent twins. It's a story of love, madness, and the terrifying, awesome power of the human mind.
Stay curious, everyone, and remember to check your sources.
See you next time.